There's a $2 liquid that can make any wood look brand new. Not cleaner, not better, brand new. And according to records, this method has existed since 1939, buried, forgotten, ignored. Not because it failed, but because it worked too well. And no, I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, because once you hear how simple it is, you'll understand exactly why they hoped you'd forget. Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at an old fence, a deck, or even furniture, and thought, yeah, that's done? Comment done if you've ever said that. Because what you're about to learn might completely change how you see wood forever. Here's what this liquid actually does. It doesn't sit on the surface. It doesn't cover damage like paint or temporarily improve it like stain. It goes deeper, inside the wood, into the grain itself, where the real damage lives. And instead of hiding it, it reverses it. Gray, sun-destroyed boards start pulling their color back. Dry, cracked fibers begin to rehydrate. Dead-looking wood starts looking alive again. And it happens fast. One pass on a weathered board, and you can literally watch the transformation begin. One coat on a full deck, and suddenly that $1,000 contractor quote becomes meaningless. Furniture you were ready to throw away starts looking like something you'd proudly display. No sanding, no machines, no experience, just one liquid. And I still haven't told you what's inside it. Now here's where things start getting uncomfortable. The wood restoration industry generates over $2 billion every year. Homeowners routinely spend between $900 and $2,700 on deck refinishing alone. Now think about that. Thousands of dollars for something that can be done for less than the price of a coffee. That's not a small difference. That's a system. And systems don't protect what's cheap. They protect what's profitable. So how did this disappear? Why don't you see this in every hardware store? Why isn't it the first result when you search online? Because this method didn't fit the business model. It goes all the way back to the early 20th century. Around 1939, craftsmen were already using this formula. Not in labs, not in factories, in workshops, garages, backyards. They didn't need branding. They didn't need instructions. They understood materials. They knew what worked. And they passed it down quietly, from one generation to the next, until something changed. Wait, it gets worse. In the 1950s, synthetic coatings entered the market. Faster to apply, shinier to look at, easier to sell. But there was one problem. They didn't last. They cracked, they peeled, they faded. And every time they failed, you had to buy again. That wasn't a flaw, that was the model. Because repeat failure creates repeat customers, and repeat customers create billions. So the old method? It didn't disappear overnight, it just slowly faded, pushed out by products that needed you to come back again, and again, and again. And I still haven't told you what's inside this $2 liquid, because once you hear it, you'll realize something frustrating. You could have done this years ago. Let me ask you something. Do you think this kind of information was hidden on purpose, or people just stopped passing it down? Type hidden or forgotten, because the answer to that question explains everything. Now let's break down what actually happens when this liquid touches wood. This is where everything changes. Most modern products sit on top of the wood, like a shell, and the moment that shell cracks, moisture gets in. Damage spreads, and the entire surface starts failing. That's why decks peel. That's why finishes bubble. That's why wood turns gray again. But this liquid? It doesn't sit on top. It goes inside, deep into the structure. And once it's in there, it starts bonding, strengthening, rebuilding from within. So instead of creating a layer, it becomes part of the wood itself. That's why it lasts. That's why it doesn't peel. That's why it works. Now imagine combining that with something that strips away years of damage instantly. Dirt, oxidation, dead surface fibers, gone. And then adding one final ingredient, that allows everything to absorb faster and start working almost immediately. 3 simple components. That's it. And no, still not naming them yet, because once you hear them, you'll realize how simple this really is. Here's the part they don't want you to think about. You can't patent this. It's made from materials that have existed for generations. No ownership, no exclusivity, no control. And if something can't be controlled, it can't generate long-term profit. So it gets ignored, buried, replaced by better solutions that just happen to cost more. Now, before I finally reveal it, there's something you need to understand. This isn't magic. It works incredibly well, but only if you use it correctly, because like anything powerful, it has limits. And most people ignore that part. So here it is. The $2 liquid that makes wood look brand new is a simple mixture of 3 things: a natural oil, a mild acid, and a penetrating solvent. That's it. Equal parts, mixed together, applied with a cloth, no machines, no expertise, just basic application. And once you try it, you'll see it immediately. The gray disappears, the color returns, the wood comes back to life, and suddenly, everything you thought needed replacing doesn't. Now be honest, would you actually try this yourself or still hire someone? Comment DIY or pay, because that one decision is exactly what this entire industry depends on. That deck you've been avoiding could look brand new this weekend. That fence your neighbor keeps telling you to replace could be restored before dinner. That furniture sitting in storage could look better than when you bought it. The wood didn't fail, the knowledge did. And once knowledge disappears, costs go up. Dependence increases, and simple solutions become invisible. But now you know. 3 ingredients, 1 mixture, a few minutes of effort. That's all it takes. If this changed how you see things, subscribe. Because there's a lot more like this that never made it to the mainstream. And the next one is even harder to believe.